Welcome back, guys, to another one of my Epic 7 tier list for you guys today. And today we're going to be talking all about 5-star RGB units and how well they fare in PvP. Now, we're going to be talking about Guild Wars, Arena for both offense and defense, as well as World Arena / RTA all together. So we're going to be combining basically all the modes of PvP into one tier list and kind of make a general tier list for you guys today. Now, keep in mind, guys, that this is just my own opinion. You guys are allowed to disagree. Just let me know in the comments down below if you guys think some units need to be moved around. Now, basically, we're going to be separating these units into 6 tiers. So first, we have the S tier units. These units you'll see everywhere. They'll be on defense teams. They'll be on offense teams. You'll see them all the time in World Arena as well. A tier units, these units will not be as frequently seen, but they're still very, very powerful, and you'll still see them very often. B tier units, these units will be more niche. These units will be used as counter picks for the most part, but they're still very good at what they do. And in some situations, if you are lacking a lot of units, these units can actually work as general purpose units as well, but they'll be just a little bit worse than the S and A tier units. Next, we have the C tier units. These units are not that great, but they're still usable, or they are very, very niche, but they're still going to be able to be used if you actually put them in the right situation. D tier units, guys, these units are not that great, but they still can be used in some situations, more so for fun for the most part, and more so for Guild Wars offense, but they're still going to be usable somewhat. And then don't use tier, kind of self-explanatory, right? You guys don't want to use it. So we're not going to even show the don't use tier. I'm just going to scroll up here, and you guys are not going to really see the entire tier for don't use, but basically that's anything that's not, in the D tier or above, you don't want to use. And for the most part in general, you want to stick to S, A, and B tier units. Now, starting off, guys, with the S tier units, obviously we're going to have Lua at the top. She has been super broken since release. She is seen all the time on defense for Arena and Guild Wars. You can use her on offense. She's very good. She's also highly, highly contested in World Arena, frequently first picked, frequently banned, so Lua is very, very good. Mid, guys, very strong for aggressive players who like to have a CR pusher with attack buff. She's very powerful with her skill nullifier, and she's very powerful with her S3 giving crit damage, and also attack buff if you have her on her artifact, and she's just extremely powerful at combat readiness pushing. Edward Elric, guys, a very good bruiser into debuff teams, and we have so many debuffers in the meta right now, which makes him very, very powerful, and for that reason, he is in the S tier. Karina, guys, so some people think that she should be lower now because people kind of figured out how to draft around her, but I still think she's extremely powerful, especially for defense teams. She's so annoying on counter set if you get unlucky, and even in World Arena, she forces an answer into her because her damage output and her sustain with that barrier and that defense buff is absolutely insane for everyone on her team. Next, we have Landy, guys. So Landy is a limited unit, but she is still very, very strong in PvP even after the long time that she's been released for. So she's very good in the current meta because a lot of teams don't really have an answer to stealth right now. That's kind of also why Spectre Tenebria is so good. And if Landy has a cleanser by her side and she can cycle quickly, which she usually can because her S3 gives speed buff, and she keeps her guiding light up, she becomes a very powerful damage threat, and she can pretty much, two-shot Spectre Tenebrias with her S3, so she's very, very strong. Ocean Breeze Luluka, guys, this is a new limited unit. She's very powerful because of the fact that she is a really good answer to cleave and to units that take non-attack turns. So for example, Conquer Ilias, she's very good against. She can also be used against Meteor Cowric and also Lua, and she just completely shuts down cleave on her own because of her S3 defense buff with that ice cream, and also because her S2 can cut and also apply silence and decrease hit chance, which is super, super annoying to deal with, and she can pretty much shut down cleave alone, like I said. Politis, guys, extremely good as a cleaver and against cleave, and also a very good answer to a mid. So if you are looking for the best counter to a mid because you're getting owned by a mid in World Arena, Politis is your best bet. Now we have Payra and Rand, so these are interchangeable. It really doesn't matter too much. These units are not really similar, but they will function in the same team comps. They're very good in aggressive cleave comps, and they are probably the best openers right now for cleave still, even after the release. So you definitely want to make sure if you like cleaving that you have both of these units built in case one of them gets banned in World Arena. Zahak, guys, extremely powerful in offense for Guild Wars. He's one of the best Guild Wars offense damage dealers in the game. He's also very good in Arena offense, and he's also very good in World Arena if you're looking for a good injury bruiser. His S3 is super strong. It can one-shot a lot of squishy units and can cripple a lot of HP scaling bruisers. And also he has built-in hit chance, making him very good against evasion units. And he's pretty bulky, and he has cleansing and an attack buff for himself and a teammate, making him extremely powerful. His kit is very overloaded. Next, we have Rowana, guys. S tier unit because she counters a lot of countering units, right? She's very good against like Bellion. She's very good against anything that's on counter. She can be used against Karina. She can be decent against Edward Elric. She can be decent against like Shu and Alencia, which are going to be a little bit lower in the tier list. Just anything with counters or dual attacks like Conquer Lias even like Summer Break Charlotte, she's a very, very good option. And now we're breaking into the A tier units. Like I said, these units are still very powerful, but won't be as good as the S tier units. So Krau and Yulha, guys, I have them kind of in the same level because of the fact that they're both very good at what they do. They both are designed to tank damage in Guild Wars offense. So for example, you're going to take Krau into green teams and Yulha into fire teams who have like their primary damage dealer as the opposite element. They soak damage and they S3 and get a kill. Now, both of these units actually can be used also in World Arena pretty effectively. I think in the lower ranks, Krau is probably better because he's a little bit easier to build for World Arena and he has more utility for his team. But Yulha, you'll see more in the higher ranks of World Arena, and she's very strong there as well in certain situations where the enemy side doesn't have that much damage and they have a lot of AoE damage coming in, where Yulha can actually get her S3 off. I think both of these units are mostly going to be for offense, but they still can be used in World Arena. Benamaru, guys, also a very powerful Guild Wars offense unit. He will be used against like Conquer Lias and like Luas, and you can also draft him in World Arena against these units as well. The only thing is, in World Arena, you can actually play around them pretty easily. People thought he would be super broken because he just one-shots everything, but you just don't use your non-attack skill actually, and you kill him first, and he pretty much does nothing for 2 turns. Destina, guys, she's a very powerful anti-cleave unit, very good cleanser, and has a revive and great healing. The only thing is her cooldowns are still a little bit long, especially on her S3, but she's still a very good option. I think she's one of the best Soul Weavers in the game to have built. Honestly, some people will put her in the S tier, but I have her in the A tier just because of the fact that currently in the current meta, you don't really get too much value out of her anymore as compared to last season, especially for World Arena. And there's just a lot of answers to her now than there were like last season, so I don't really see her as powerful as before, but I think she's still very, very strong, especially for Guild Wars and even so for World Arena. Next we have Shu, guys. So Shu used to be super broken, but now she's a little bit more in check because there's a lot of counters to her now, right? Landy can deal with her pretty well. Karina can deal with her pretty well. She can get cleaved pretty easily unless she gets very lucky. And there's just a lot of options. Like even Zahak can do very well against her. Rowana is very good. So you can see a lot of the units in the S tier actually do very well against her, which will drop her a tier. Some people might even put her in the B tier, but I will have her in the A tier for now. Milim, guys, very good Landy counter, that's pretty much it, but you can also kind of use her as like a bruiser. So if you actually pick her into a team comp that protects her and you have her bulky enough with very good gear, she can actually solo DPS in World Arena, and she's also very good in Guild Wars offense because she has evasion, and her S3 has extinction, which is very good against units like Spirit Eye Celine, and also like APOC Ravi's. Command Model Laika, very good aggressive opener. She has a target and she has a sleep, super strong. If you have her fast enough, she's very powerful. Flan, a very good cleave unit with her setup. She's like a worse version of a mid, but they're still very good together because in World Arena one will get banned out, and if you don't have a mid, Flan is definitely going to be maybe even better for Guild Wars because she has a defense break. Villager, guys, speed imprint, super strong for cleaving. Senya, very good against teams that don't really have a lot of cleansing and not a lot of effect resist units because her S3 can pretty much win you the game by herself. So she's a very powerful unit. She is very good in Guild Wars defense, and even in offense she's very good as well. Shavroon kind of rose the ranks in the past few months. She's very good against HP scaling bruisers with her Venom, and she's super annoying with her dispels, and she cuts so frequently with her S2, which makes her very powerful now. Rimuru, guys, used to be like S tier almost at the top, but now he's fallen down just because a lot of answers to him now, and he's kind of useless as a tank compared to the other tanky bruisers we have in the game. And Edward Elric, will kind of shut him down. Just a lot of units shut him down now, but he's still very good as like a damage dealing unit, especially for Guild Wars offense. Next we have Shuna, guys. So Shuna got buffed in the last Slime collab, and she's definitely climbed the ranks as a dispeller. She has a sleep as well with like attack down. She's very annoying. I used to think she was one of the most broken RGBs in the game, but because we have other units that kind of just deal with her very well and the meta shifted, she's fallen down to the A tier, but she's still very powerful. Now, Jacko, guys, I really love this unit. She's a very good slot-in unit for any cleave team. So if you're cleaving, you have like Ran or Para or anything that deals AoE, you can literally just draft Jacko, and she just becomes an instant threat because of her chain of Chiron, which will be very annoying with the debuffs, and she does a crazy ton of damage. She will one-shot anything with debuffs pretty much, and she's super, super strong. Roy Mustang, guys, I think this unit is very underrated, but you will see him a lot, especially in World Arena. He's very powerful as an AoE damage dealer, especially because there's a lack of good fire damage dealing units, right? The only pure damage dealing unit that is fire is actually Roy Mustang right now. Jacko's kind of like a support cleaver. Milim is kind of like a counter to Landy bruiser. Benamaro is also just like a counter opener, and Edward Elric is a bruiser. The only pure fire DPS that's good right now is Roy Mustang, because we have like Carrot, who's not that great, and like Aramintha, who I've been testing, is not that great, and Hwayoung, who got nerfed, right? So Roy Mustang is your best fire option currently. I think he's very underrated. Next, we have Summer Big Charlotte, kind of similar to Jacko. She's like a, just pick whenever when you're cleaving, just because she starts with that enhanced dual attack now, and she can actually do a ton of damage if you build her on full damage, and if she S3s after, pretty much a one-shot most of the time. You can just think of her as like a, pretty much like a free dual attack at the start of battle if you're cleaving, which makes her very, very strong. Kisei, guys, very good with like a mid, very good in cleave. Also, you can use her as a standalone DPS. She's very strong if you can support her with a lot of support around her, like a Knight with Aureus, right? And if you have someone to CR push her as well, she becomes very powerful because of her stealth. Just be careful you don't pick her into units that can pop her out of stealth easily with like dispels and stuff like that, so you don't get one shot. Arya, guys, very powerful unit. She is a pretty much a must ban against teams that cannot actually deal with her. If you don't have a way to actually dispel her counterattack, or you don't have a way to dispel the enemy teammates around her, she will just solo the game, and you have to be very careful because of that. She is super powerful in World Arena. She becomes a must ban, like I said, in a lot of situations. So you have to keep in mind that Arya can always come out. For that reason, she's in the A tier, and also in Guild Wars offense, she can be viable as well. If you pick her into certain team comps, she can literally 1v3. Now we're going into the B tier, guys. These units are still very good, but you just won't see them as often, and they will be more niche and more as like counter picks. So first up, we have Lilius. She's gonna basically be like a Lua only counter, but because you have Lua in like every game, and she's literally the best RGB PvP unit in the game, Lilius will be in the B tier because, you know, you can use her a lot more frequently than you think, because Lua is always going to be present in the form of a pick, in the form of defense teams, or in the form of a ban in World Arena. Next, we have Kayron, guys. I have him in the B tier because he's one of the best anti-cleave units in the game, actually. You just put him on counter set with some ER and he's good to go. You don't even need that crazy of stats. You just have to pray that he resists and counters, and you will just win for free. Diane, she used to be S tier, but now she's fallen because there's a lot of counters now, right? You have units like Landy, who's really just the meta. You have like Ocean Breeze Luca, who can do very good against her. Lua's very good with her, against her with like a Soul Burn. A mid can cleave her very, very easily. There's a lot of options now, so you have to be very careful. She's not as good anymore, but she's still, you know, not a bad attack buffer. Celine, guys, pure counter unit. You can use her against like Lua. You can use her against like Ocean Breeze Luca. You can use her against non-attack skill units. Just keep in mind she's a lot easier to play around than Politis is. So yeah, for that reason, she's in the B tier. Alencia, guys, used to be super powerful, but we have a unit named Ilyanov who's actually in the meta now somewhat, and she is a super hard counter to Alencia, so you have to be careful. Also, a lot of fire units like Edward Elric can deal with her, and she's also very bad against like aggression, so the meta is a little bit more of the aggressive side right now, so for that reason she has fallen down a bit. Next, we have Violet, guys. So Violet, always an RNG unit, like you kind of just win off him, or you lose, or he doesn't dodge and stuff like that. Usually RNG units like this, I usually don't rank super highly, except like Shu, who has a lot of utility for her team. So for that reason, I'm going to put him in the B tier. He can still solo win you games, but just be careful. You never know if the enemy team's DPS units on like Symbol of Unity or Hit Chance Artifact, and there's so many more Hit Chance Artifacts in the game now, so you have to be careful using evasion units. Also, like Zahawk is very good against him, and also like Briar Witch Asteria just destroys him. Milim is very good against him, so you have to be careful. There's a lot of good options against him now. Winter, guys, kind of like a Arya situation where she becomes a must ban. You just pick her into very slow, tanky, not hard hitting, non-attack skill heavy teams, and she can solo win you the game. She will cycle very quickly, have that stealth up, and she'll reset her S3 constantly and proc her S2. Ada and Summertime Asteria kind of together in the same tier because of the fact that they're both cleaving units, and also because they're both shut down the same way, right? Just ER, and yeah, you're pretty much good to go. Like Sage Ball destroys both of these units, right? And there's a lot of other options as well. Even like Violet is pretty good if you have them on immunity. So I don't think they're as good as the current S tier cleave units like Pera and Ran. And usually for the secondary options for cleaving, you're gonna want like Sid, you're gonna want like Strays, you're gonna want like Wanderer Silk, you want a mid. There's like so many options out, even like Giselle. So you have to be careful about using them. Next, we have Abigail. She's kind of a niche unit. She's more kind of for fun, but I find that if you have her on a very good build and the back DPS actually is on an ER build as well, she becomes pretty annoying, especially because of that vampirism she actually applies, or that lifesteal effect. So pretty niche, but still very good. Giselle, I think she is also very criminally underrated. She's very good in cleave. She's basically like a green Sid, but she does more damage and she has more utility and she can cleanse herself, which makes her even better. Just keep in mind she doesn't have that speed imprint like Sid does, so you're gonna have to actually compensate on your other units that are playing aggressive with more speed. Seaside Bologna, she's okay. You're gonna use her mostly against like Bellions and stuff like that. You can pick her with your Spectre Tenebria against Bellions. Just keep in mind she gets countered by a lot of the meta units like Lacerated Crow, Rowana, so you have to be careful, and any Earth unit obviously. Says, I think I ranked him a little too highly here, but comparatively to the other units, I think he is okay. But Says is actually really fun to use, and I've been having so much fun, which is kind of why I put him in the B tier. But after his buffs, he's actually very, very powerful, I think, especially if you pick him in the right situation where they can't knock him out of stealth. If you guys don't know, he got changed to where he has like a stealth built into his S2 now, so he is a lot harder to kill, and when he does bomb with his S3, you pretty much win the game. Charlotte, guys, good AoE damage dealer, fire unit as well. Just keep in mind that there are a lot of answers to her. Like I said, Ikrina like completely destroys her. She's very bad against cleave as well, so you have to be careful. Lua and a mid are very good against her. There's so many good options, like I said. She's very good against the highly contested Spectre Tenebria though, so for that reason she's in the B tier. Next we have Amelia. She's kind of similar to Flan, but kind of has more healing instead of more offensive aggression. And I think units like that, which are kind of like half and half, are not that great. I think you need to kind of be like full on aggression or full on defensive right now. It's like turn 1, turn 2. You're basically either fighting for turn 1 or you're giving up turn 1 and playing for turn 2. And Amelia is not a unit that does both very well. And usually you don't have Amelia super fast. But if you do have your Amelia built to be super fast, then I guess you can use her. But just a mid right now is just a better Amelia right now. Fairy Tail Tenebria, very good for turn 2 players. She is a very good option, especially if you are looking to pick her as a last pick against teams without cleansing. She can solo win you games. Rem, just a good option against like Bellion and stuff like that. She's very annoying and she's good against cleave as well. Just keep in mind you want to build her a lot more tankier than before because she kind of just dies right now unless you have her on a more tanky build than when she first released. Pavel, another cleave unit, just very reliant on souls. Very good in Guild Wars offense though, so he's a very good option there. But in World Arena, you have to be very careful picking him. So for C and D tier units, I'm not going to talk about these in specific, guys, but basically these units you can pick as counter picks to certain situations or in Guild Wars offense in some situations as well. So for example, Hwa-Young, very good against very tanky units if you have her on like a 3 torrent set. Arunka, good against barrier teams, right? Ravi, good against teams with no damage. Ilyanov, like I said, good against Alencia for D tier, right? Luna, very good as a Guild Wars offense unit, especially in the mid game. Same with Baiken. And we also have units like Melissa, which can also be used in Guild Wars offense against evasion units. So yeah, that being said, that's pretty much it for this tier list though, guys. If you guys have any disagreements, let me know. And let me know what you want changed in the tier list. I always look at your feedback and I update this every, I'd say like half a year or quarter of a year. So yeah, let me know what you guys think and hopefully you enjoyed this video and found this helpful. Peace.